So I'm glad to see there's a bunch of women in the audience. This is great. Hopefully you'll come away from this feeling empowered, and stop me at any time if you have questions. So that's my name, my Twitter handle, and our app logo, which I'm pretty proud of because I'm a fan of green. So does anybody know who this is? No, not Martha Washington. This is, and I forgot to staple these. So, no. So it's Ada Lovelace. She is the founder of tech. So she was the first person to actually write code and that made it onto a machine to program analytics. And so she's my personal hero. She passed away in 1852 before any of us, before she was able to see her work come to fruition. But for my Women Crush Wednesday, if it were Wednesday, it would be Ada Lovelace. Flash forward 160 something years later, this is where we are in tech. This was an actual cover of Newsweek magazine in February of this year. I know, it's sad, it's scary, and it's frankly appalling. They'll have this presentation posted somewhere for you, and you can click the links, and this will take you to the article. It's just a shame. This stat really jumped out at me, that nearly 2/3 of the top 71 investment funds have no women as senior investment team members. And we'll talk about why that is and how we can change that. And again, this will link you to the articles so you can read all about it. I'm sorry? Oh, no, you don't have to. If you want to give me your email address after this, yeah, I mean, this room's packed, so, might not be able to get, yeah. So Silicon Valley, their diversity ambitions, and not just for women, but for people of different ethnicities and all kinds of things, they're way up here, but reality is it's ridiculous for the year that it is. A few of the investment firms that are out in Silicon Valley, Excel, that invested in Facebook, there are 0 women on its 8-member senior team. Sequoia Capital, big firm, 0 women on its 14-member senior team. Founders Fund, who co-founders Peter Thiel, who was part of LinkedIn and big name, there are 0 women on its senior team. Anderson Horowitz has 1 woman, great, on its 16-person senior team. Y Combinator, which we're actually applying to their accelerator, they have 1 woman on their 11-member senior team. And then Thrive Capital has 0 women on its 6-person investment team. And those are the key players out in Silicon Valley, so we are extremely underrepresented. So, we account for half of the labor force and more than half of the workers in management and other professional jobs. And according to Fenwick & West, who is actually our law firm helping us with everything that comes with being a startup, they're making it known that few women make it through that door. Few women bust through that glass ceiling. If they even make it to Silicon Valley, they may never even see that door. So here's some charts I thought were pretty compelling from the Huffington Post. So basically, it's a comparison of the Silicon Valley top 150 companies and then the S&P 100, which is just general market top companies, Fortune 500. So Silicon Valley, they have no women on their boards. 43% of Silicon Valley companies, the top 150, have 0 women on their board, and then the next percentage down is 40%. So it's ridiculous. And then with the S&P 100, they're doing a little bit better. 2 is better than 1, which is better than 0, but it's still ridiculous. And then nearly half of the Silicon Valley 150 companies have no female executives at all. While 84% of the S&P 500 manages to at least have 1. It's like they're filling out a box, checking off a quota, but it needs to change. What was really interesting while I was doing this research, this is an actual screenshot from the page I was looking at. These are the ads on the right-hand side. It's American Express, because they think I shop, which I do, but Then the next one is, this is how to get away with a super short hemline. Not, this is how to succeed as a CMO, or this is how to get up to date on coding. Then this slow cooker mac and cheese is game changing. I don't cook. I can't remember the last time I did cook. My husband cooks. He's great. And then something about a baby. I mean, I've got a 6.5-year-old. We're out of that stage. So it's, even when women are actively seeking for information, society is serving us and pushing us into a role that we're not as empowered as we could be. You know, if a man is doing these searches, he's going to see much different ad options. So I thought I was like, well, thanks for helping me with my speech. This is great. Between only 1/4 to 1/3 of private tech companies have a woman on board. You know, we went through that, but this is just reiteration of, wow. And you, as this whole audience is women, realize what our differences are from men. They're not black and white, but they're gray, and we definitely have different thoughts, different way of acting, and different things we can offer, especially since we make 84% of the consumer decisions in the economy. You'd think they'd want to listen up. So 20 years ago, the senior partners in venture capital were 97% male. So what do you think the number is today? Anybody? 95? 98? 96. We have gotten 1% better in 20 years. It's laughable. It's absolutely ridiculous. You know, their biggest venture capitalists are almost entirely male, and that's just the current landscape. So this stat, and y'all, I'm not a numbers person, so I've got to refer to my notes. But VCs are not funding women. According to a study by Babson College, only 2.7% of the over 6,000 companies that received venture funding from 2011 to 2013 had women CEOs. We're finding that women with ideas are actually dipping into their personal savings account or getting smaller amounts, 100,000 here, 50,000 here, versus the 1 million plus that it's needed to scale a company and go national. And this is a stark comparison. Meanwhile, female-run startups produce a 31% higher return on investment in startups by men. That's from the Kaufman report. So that's a pretty telling number. If I'm a man or a woman at a VC firm, that number speaks to me. So I would maybe rethink that 2.7% number of startups that we're funding. But it's all not doom and gloom. There are things we can do, and we can actually use technology to solve this problem. Case in point, let's look to some awesome female leaders that are already paving the way. Hopefully you all know who the woman in the bottom left is, Sheryl Sandberg, COO of Facebook. But I didn't know about the CEO of Xerox and the CEO of IBM and of YouTube. And you actually pronounce her name Wojcicki. If you Google her, she has this whole YouTube video of how you pronounce her name, because she has been running into that her whole life. Like me, with a name like Titania, people are like, yeah, I'm not sure how you say that. But Business Insider did an article about the coolest women in tech, and these women are paving the way and doing big things, and we can take a lot of notes from them. Starting with Google. So the founders understood that it was something that was good to build into the culture early on, meaning elevating women to an equal position of men. The senior level management was concerned because, as articles like this from the New York Times, there's a falling number of women in the inner circle. They took notice. Women were dropping out in the interviewing process. They weren't promoted at the same rate as men. And so then they used tech, because that's what they're good at. And they actually created algorithms to pinpoint exactly what point in the process women were lost and figured out how to keep them. So a few things from that case study. I'll go back real quick. Employees nominate themselves for promotions, and they were finding that women were not as likely to promote themselves as men. It was just ingrained in our culture to not be as aggressive or as assertive or or tout our accomplishments. So they implemented a mentorship program where senior executives were mentoring the lower level executives to help foster a sense of confidence and speak up and say what you're good at. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with touting your accomplishments. So if we can continue to look to leaders ahead of us and ask for guidance, and then also mentor and pour in and invest to women younger than us, it will be a great asset to our community. Like Shireen, right in the front row, has poured into me. Also, another place that Google was losing employees is when they had babies. I mean, it's hard. We are raised in this society to get the best education we can and go with full force, hardcore, climb that corporate ladder, but then all of a sudden we've got to carry and develop a human for 9 months and then make sure they stay alive and become productive members of society. So that can really throw you a curveball when you're on that corporate path and torn between, do I mom, do I have a career, do I have both? How does that happen? So, maternity leave in America is just ridiculous. But Google did lengthen its maternity leave to 5 months versus, the 6 to 12 weeks that many companies have. And then they also changed from partial pay to full pay because, why does that mean you need less money, right? And then also they bumped up paternity leave too, because it's not just women that are caring for babies, it's men too. I don't know if any of you are married or have a partner or have children, but I know the second that my husband left the house, I think it was day 3 after I had my son Jackson, I was like, whoa, what is going on here? Like, you're gonna leave me with a baby? It's like that commercial, I think it's Citibank, don't leave us with a baby. It's like, what are you doing to me? And then back to Google's data. So they had some spreadsheets that showed that women who applied for jobs did not make it past the phone interview. And again, it's because the women were not flaunting their achievements. So interviewers were judging them as unaccomplished. So they had some more face-to-face interviews, and they worked on that part of the process as well. What's really, really interesting with this next company, Salesforce, Mark Beinoff, he's the co-founder and chief executive. He started this thing called the Women's Surge, and you can Google Women's Surge and search for it. It's a New York Times article, also link right there in the presentation. Thank you. So after some internal investigation, he realized that he needed to achieve 100% equality for men and women in both pay and promotion, and to make sure that at least a third of all participants in any meeting in the company were women. And he was shocked that some of his senior women were bringing to his attention that many of the women were being paid than their male counterparts. He was thinking, how can this be? It's 2015, we've got a great company, and how can this happen? But they did an internal audit of every single employee's salary, and sure enough, their male counterparts were being paid more. So they immediately changed that. They gave a lot of women a lot of raises, which I think is just really, really, really cool. And Facebook, Pinterest, Twitter, Amazon, and other big companies have followed suit. That's wonderful, but unfortunately, it still hasn't moved that needle, as y'all saw. It's only increased 1% in 20 years. So, we need to focus on a few other things. See, this is my calendar because I'm a mom. It's telling me I need to pick up my son. No, I don't think so. I think we can get back to it somehow. Oh, no, I've got that. Yay, I figured it out. Okay, so back to Facebook, what Facebook's doing. They review compensation data for gender fairness yearly, and then they make adjustments when they find inequality. And then Buffer, which is a social media startup, they compensate employees based on a formula that takes seniority, experience, and location into account. And it makes all salaries public, which is really controversial, right? It can cause some envious feelings from internal employees, but then again, they're held accountable. And then SumAll, which is a marketing startup, has made its salaries transparent internally, just like Buffer. And at Reddit, before Ms. Powell was ousted as chief executive, she also has a lawsuit against Kleiner Perkins, I believe, for gender discrimination. She started a policy of not negotiating salaries when recruiting new employees, because what they found whenever you go into a job interview, men were more likely to negotiate. They would shoot for the moon and take the stars, whereas women would undervalue themselves. So fine, we're not negotiating, it is what it is. So this is another great statistic. 15% of companies with more gender diversity outperform their competition. They're just more likely to have financial returns above their national industry medians. That's a very, very telling statistic. Unfortunately, 28% of men still, right now, working full-time, are making more than women, their women counterparts. And in Silicon Valley and in tech, the situation's even worse. Men earn up to 61% more than their female peers. 61%. That just shouldn't be. And that's, again, in the New York Times. You can Google it and find that out. And what's crazy is that we in America have more open tech jobs than at any point in history. I mean, no matter what unemployment's doing, there is always a career in tech. And women should have the same opportunity as men, especially when it comes to salary. So let's talk about what we can do. If you're head of a company, make sure that prospective employees are meeting other women in the organization, not just men. Hopefully there are other women in the organization. Let's refocus and look at maternity leave. Make sure it's extended, and make sure you have a paternity leave policy as well. It's a very hard transition in a human's life when you're giving life to another human. So if you can foster that transition, you will get that employee back, and arguably even more dedicated than they were before, because they realize that life is short and time is valuable. And I certainly know I hustled way more after I had a son than before. You can start with awareness. Be aware of the corporate culture. Then don't be afraid to take action. And then don't be so naive to think you don't need to revisit it every year. Things change, policies change. So just make it part of your corporate culture. And then I'm sure all of you know one woman who has a lot of promise, but has not been invested in, and who really, you know that you know more than her. And if you were to take, 20 minutes at coffee and just give her something, it could be that spark that changes her career. When I was at home with my son and I was freelancing, I actually took him to the Center for Puppetry Arts to a show, and I totally think this was like on purpose. I ran into my 4th grade teacher. How random is that? I mean, there was like nobody there. She was there and my son was there, and she walked up to me and she said, "Titania, I've always remembered you. You always stood out in my mind as a wonderful student, and you were just such a great writer. Are you still writing?" And I hadn't been. And I started writing that day. And I wrote a blog post that got picked up by the Mom 2.0 conference, and they called me and asked me to come speak in California. Just that little investment is the spark that can start a forest fire. And then, sometimes there's a lot of cattiness and a lot of infighting. As women in the industry, we have to make room for other women. We have to make them feel welcome. There's no infighting, there's no gossip, there's no room for drama. Business is business, and you just have to be straight up. I work with one of my best friends, and when she came aboard, I was like, look, we're friends, but when we're at the office, I might say some things that might hurt your feelings, but you can't take it personal. Business is business. And you just, for lack of a better term, you kind of have to grow a pair. It's just, you got to buck up and get with it. And then on that same note, draw clear boundaries about what is not acceptable. For example, me just saying that, if that made you uncomfortable, you need to say, you know what, I don't like what you just said, and I can understand that, okay, I don't need to talk like that. If you don't speak up, things will fester and lie, and then they'll blow up. And yeah. Yes, I would think so too. I don't know if you've read Sheryl Sandberg's book, Lean In, but you got to speak up, because it shows that, hey, you're not someone to be walked over or disrespected. It's like, look, I'm not okay with that, and I dare you to challenge me that was okay. You know what I mean? I think definitely. I challenge people in positions of seniority all the time, but not in a way with an attitude, just like, hey, yeah, no, and they respect it and they appreciate it, and they also feel that they can do the same to me. Like, that wasn't a good call, and I don't sink into my hole of, oh gosh, I'm not enough. It's just like, okay, thank you for that feedback. I'm going to grow from it. And then encourage women to be more assertive, starting when they're young. You cannot pour into them enough. I just read this quote last week and I was like, oh my gosh, that totally describes a woman. Women simultaneously feel like they are too much, yet not enough. And I don't know if that resonates with you, but that totally resonates with me. I am too sensitive, I'm too anxious, I'm too this, I'm too that, but then I'm not enough. I'm not smart enough, I'm not fast enough, what a place to be in, right? Like, how can you go anywhere feeling that way? So you need to break through that glass ceiling and break through that barrier. And make diversity a priority in everything you do. Make sure when you're looking around, it's not all the same people, because something's not right there. In the culture of engineering, it's male-driven. It's a male-driven culture. Get more girls in STEM programs. It's shocking how many times I'll see an advertisement for a Lego camp, a robotics camp, and it's all like, bring your boys. I'm like, really? What about girls? If I had a daughter and she liked Legos, she's going to be in the building camp too. It's just funny because there's no men in this audience, and I wish there were, but I think they could stand to benefit from that eye-opening bit of advice. And then look for peer mentoring programs. So there's Glass Breakers, there's Startup Chicks, which it's funny they named it Chicks, but anyway. And then I work at the Atlanta Tech Village. There's Women of the Village. So try to find a place where women like you, in whatever field you're in, are congregating so you can better from it. Yes?
I just had a conversation actually with one of my techs, and we had a conversation about men and women. What would be your advice to a man to encourage women, or maybe to start this conversation with other men?
That is such a good question. I promise I didn't ask her to ask that. Okay, so what, if I can remember it correctly, what sort of advice would you give to a man to start this conversation with other men? So, which actually leads me into my next slide. So, at Privet, we have a CEO. His name is Chris Morocco. He's a man. I'm the founder and the CMO. And he actually is the biggest believer in the book Lean In, and he makes everybody read it before they join our company, whether it's man or woman. So I would suggest any man that wants to be aware of the differences between males and females and how to make women more successful, read the book Lean In. There's just so many studies that will blow your mind, from when Sheryl Sandberg would go into a boardroom and she would see all the men sit at the table and all the women assistants sit at the chairs, like in the far corners of the room. It's like, why wouldn't they just come sit at the table with the men? Or when, in fourth grade, when a boy is saying, oh, me, pick me, the teacher calls on him. But if a girl did that, she'd say, oh, you're being a little bit out of line. Like, you need to have self-control. It's just subliminal things that happen to us all along of our life cycle that really affect how we act and shape our culture. So our core values as a team, the second one is lean in. We are constantly encouraging anyone that joins our team to raise their hand and speak up. I don't care if you are the janitor or the CEO. Your ideas matter, and we want to hear them. So it's just, you have to bring awareness. And after you bring awareness, you have to actively search and seek out what you can do and what can be done. Because as you can see, it's not a problem that is going to be solved anytime soon. It hasn't been. But the more women we get in tech, the less of an anomaly it will be. The more women in the boardrooms and in executive suites, the less of an anomaly it will be. So, lean in, raise your hand, speak up, raise those issues like with HR. I was wondering if there's ever been an internal audit of the differences in salary between men and women. You might want to take a look at that. That would raise some red flags and get the ball rolling right there. So, I know, I talk really fast. So, if you have questions, shoot.
I have a question, observation. I actually love to hear the other women in the room. So I'm 50, and I've been doing this for a little while. And I have noticed, even at my age, with my level of experience, since I had a child 6 years ago, the response I will get sometimes from men in situations is the assumption is that I am thinking as a mom first instead of as a business professional. It is infuriating.
Mm-hmm.
We had a client that we were doing some work with that's in the home furnishing space. 94% of home furnishings are bought by women. So we were telling them why they should be targeting women and moms. And they're like, oh no, we can't forget the husbands. And we're like, yeah, really, you can. And later he calls me and he's like, do you guys ever do anything besides like mommy vlogs? I was so mad. You guys don't know me and my background, but if you did, I was like, are you kidding me? We have a real estate investment hedge fund client. We have a locums tenens physician. Yes, the answer is yes. But this kind of stuff makes me crazy, and I'm doing probably what Titania's recommending against doing, thinking, what am I not doing enough of that they didn't get that? Because I'm certain if I had been a man, they would not have questioned my recommendations.
So the conversation that I had with I manage about 10 techs, and I observe how they respond to when I say something or when I recommend something versus somebody else. And it started with this particular tech because he gives good feedback and he's pretty fair. So I was like, you know, if ever I need something like recommended, I'm going to ask you from now on, because everybody goes like this when he stands up and speaks rather than when I mention something. And it is infuriating, and I'm not a mom, so I can't relate to that, but it's infuriating when somebody else stands up and says something and everybody, you know, ears perked up and listening, and when I say something, it's kind of like, oh, she's just, you know, she's talking.
I don't know. I
find that too. I really do. I came just out of a management position. I'm not in tech, by the way. I'm in broadcasting, but I do a lot of Israel consulting. So I find that too. What?
My background.
Oh, cool. So, you know, I find that too. As a manager, there was a dismissiveness where they would listen to the guy manager, and it wasn't just because they were higher above me. They just were totally attentive. So how do you grab that attention when automatically there's got to be the same thing going on that you're not good enough?
So, and I think that's where the question stemmed from, because he said, he's like, one, you're a woman. He's like, and I understand that that's not fair, but that's how things are. He's like, I don't know how to change that, like how to change other, you know, men's perspectives, and that's where my question came from. Two, it has to do with seniority, like I haven't been there as long. And then he said, you know, knowledge, so depending on how, you know, what you know, what you don't know. I asked another man who is not in tech at all, but I was like, how do you get men to do things that you need them to do? And he said, you really have to be stern but fair. So I think as women, we lean towards being nicer sometimes, maybe not all of us. And what I noticed works for me is I go there and I have this like confident air about me, and I'm like, I need you to do this. I'm not being a bee, but I'm just saying I need you to do this, this needs to get done, and like very, very business-like. They respond to that rather than like, can you please do this?
Oh yeah.
Right,
But
well, I'm
not-
telling you, I go in there very assertively, and I'm not apologizing, and I'm not asking him. And he didn't in that moment, but later calls
But
me
not
out.
like you're trying to prove something. That was the advice I got. Stern but fair, but not as though you're trying to prove something. So because men sense that. So like as a woman, when we feel we're not enough, we're trying to prove something. Men feed off of that, and they don't respond.
There's a lot of things you can do subliminally to command presence without being off-putting. For example, you know, I gave my whole presentation standing, you know, in my square behind my computer, looking at my notes. But what I should have done is walked around, you know, captured your attention, used hand movements and arm gestures and clapped my hands and pointed to people. And that's what my CEO does. He is a brilliant public speaker. He was a quarterback for Clemson, right? He gets leading, and he's been doing that. He's almost 50 years old. I'm still learning. I reverted back to my safe shell. But when you want to command a room, you move around, you take up space. And then let's say you're going into a meeting. You sit at the head of the table. You sit right by the person at the head of the table. And a lot of women too, I just had this experience today with a coworker. She was saying, I'm sorry, da 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 da. You don't need to say you're sorry unless you actually hurt someone, right? There's no sorry, it's just, oh, is what it is. Yeah. And then a lot of women too, oh, Titania, what do you do? Oh, I just made an app. Like, no, just like, I made an app. Like, what's up? You know, you have to own it. You have a commanding presence and own it and speak up and know that nobody is going to come to you and say, hey, you show some promise. I think that you are going to be really good at this, so I want to elevate you to here. Nobody is going to do that for you. You have to do it yourself. You have to go for it, you have to get it, and you have to ask for it. Nobody's just going to say, hey, you deserve a raise. I'm going to take some money from our budget and give you more of it. Mm-mm. You have to ask for it and you have to command it. Because, you know, our employees that don't ask for more, we're certainly not trying to give them more. We're trying to make every dollar count. So I would be interested to know what everybody here does, since it's such a small, cozy group. What do you do?
Outlier. I'm an attorney. I'm from Dallas, Texas, and I work for a national insurance company. And so I'm here. I've been practicing law for 8 years. I'm kind of information gathering as to next steps for myself. And so I work in a very male-dominated industry. And so I find that, you know, assertiveness is key, and we need more assertiveness from women, so we won't be considered or labeled as she being a B, you know, because men are not labeled that.
No.
You know, it's just a man, you know, my boss can tell me be very direct, you know, and say, Ursula, do this, and, you know, but if a woman, one of, you know, colleagues or whatever, her upper level management said the same thing to me, people would take that, oh, she's being, you know, salty, or, you know. And so I think that we have to not only allow, like what you said about leaning in, about saying, okay, no, that's inappropriate, or that's, you know, I don't agree with that, but we also as women have to not continue to perpetuate that stereotype of, oh, I'm sorry, or being the nice girl, you know, because sometimes niceness equates to not as smart, you know, so we have to stop that stereotype as well, and just say, okay, they think that I am, you
But
know,
also
one day they
being
won't.
okay with being that was, we had a very long conversation, but he was like, just be okay with it. Even
Right.
if you think you are that,
Yeah.
just be okay with it.
Yeah, I just think as women we have to, it's like power in numbers.
I still feel like we're talking a little bit too much about what we should be doing. Like,
Oh, of course, I mean, yeah.
Because I know, I read an article recently in law firms, like half or more of associates are women.
Oh, yeah,
Are
yeah.
women partners.
Yeah.
And a lot of it has to do with the mommy track. And how law firms are losing all this institutional knowledge. So there's some systemic issues that need to
Oh,
be
I
addressed.
agree.
And I don't, frankly, know how to address and push for that until it becomes such a huge economic burden for those companies.
Right.
They don't address it.
Yeah, I think it's like from, you know, from the C-suite, they have to take on those initiatives. I mean, like being in a social law firm, you can't take on that huge system, you know, battle, or, you know, try to bring about the systemic change. It's just not going to happen. It has to, I think it has to come from the higher up.
So there's this rule of three. I don't know if you guys have heard of this, that until there are 3 women in the C-suite or on the board, those changes don't get affected or enacted. Anytime a woman who's the solo woman, I've been that solo woman on an executive team or on the board, says anything, they automatically assume it's a woman's issue.
Yeah.
Until 3 women or more are on that team, then it becomes a business and a community issue. And businesses have also found that if they address what they perceive as women's needs, that men actually like it better. Like what you were talking about with the Google and parental leave. So they were giving it to the moms, and the dads were like, wait a minute, hey. And there's this great story, I want to say it was like 20 years ago, where Courtyard Marriott was looking at renovating their facilities. And they did some research and found out that there were more women business travelers. So they asked, what do you want? And what we wanted was a couple of things, but we wanted one point of entry. We didn't want to go around to the back and come up some stairs at night by ourselves. And we didn't want a bar. And so, you know, Courtyard redesigned, so they have that like kind of family room sort of area, gathering area, and they have one single point of entry now. Well, it turns out that all the male business travelers preferred all of those changes too. So it increased their business exponentially, not just with women, but also with men. But I feel like I've been saying the same stuff for 20 years, and some small pockets get it. So yeah, I don't know how we affect those systemic changes until we get more of us at that level. And yet we're having a hard time getting us at that level. So what happens? We all leave corporate America and we do what Titania's doing, what I did, we start our own companies. Because we're like, you're not going to,
what I do.
yeah, like, fuck it, I'm not doing this anymore, it's something else.
Yeah.
And I think also mentorship is key. You mentioned
Yes.
earlier, you know, if say for instance in a law firm, all I can do is speak to my industry, but in a law firm you may have one woman partner, and since she grew up, she was cultivated or she was groomed in an area where she was the sole woman, and she had to just kind of just, you know, tuck her down and just, you know, whatever. She feels like, okay, that's what I'm gonna do to the next woman, and that's, you know, I think that's
See,
very
I have a
sad.
question about that, because I have had women literally not help my career.
Oh, that's what I mean, yeah.
That's what she's saying.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I'm
Just
saying,
stop
like,
it,
they feel like,
okay.
okay, if I was groomed the hard way and I had to just deal with it then, and that worked for me, because now I'm a partner, I'm gonna treat you the same way. I think that's very unfortunate.
Yeah, it is, because the only people that help me in my industry, unfortunately, were men. No women help me. So, how do, you know, I have a double-edged sword about how I feel about that.
Yeah.
The men are the ones that help me, the women were not. And so we keep that that cycle goes on, and women don't help me, so we don't band together.
Yeah. Well, you can in turn help other women. Like, you weren't helped, but you can help other women, and you know what they need to hear. You know, take the input you've received from men and help other women. You know, I've have received help from men and women, not just women. I would have loved to know more women in CEO and CFO roles. I don't. So I've had to learn a lot from men. But you can, in turn, pour into women and start to break that cycle. What do? You touched on it.
Manager, and you know, like what you were saying earlier, I just, so I manage their schedules, the project time that they do, what they do throughout the day, and just, I like to say I herd cats because they're all over the place, and they're techs, they're engineers, so of course they think they know better, and yeah, so I organize them all day long.
Nice. And you freelance in digital media.
Oh, I'm actually have my own media company right now.
Okay.
I just came from, I was executive producer of My Puppy Show, and did a lot of radio producing and broadcasting.
Okay.
And have found through downsizing that being on my own is the best thing. So now I do everything from coach people on the air to do their social media campaigns. So it's more of a marketing media company. It's really exciting, except I'm starting out as a solo woman. It's interesting. It's a challenge.
Yeah.
It's a challenge. I could use any mentorship.
And what do you do there?
I'm the senior director for the Georgia Constituency,
Okay.
and I'm speaking next. So.
Nice.
All right.
I was in the workroom, and I thought this conversation was too important to listen in a couple doors away. So I was like, well, I'll go and actually see who's doing the phone.
Hey, yeah, we like that. Awesome. And then Tiffany, tell everybody what you do.
What doesn't she do?
Yeah, what doesn't she do?
Well, I do social media management, content marketing, and streaming, income marketing, and then I also work with Jenny Munn, who's an SEO consultant and trainer, doing her client management. And then I work with local bloggers who need help with their blog or with SEO or getting things set up, and they just have questions about blogging in general. Mostly women who are trying to start their own business and trying to get things off the ground. And I run a meetup group of about 500 bloggers.
And she parents how many children?
And I have 6 kids. So I have to say that first because nobody wants to say anything else.
So she has to have that on the end.
If I say it first, and people are just like, I'm done talking, and then they go, okay, now you have 6 kids? Yes. They didn't hear any of the rest because they're sitting there going,
She's
how
also
old is she?
she's also getting a degree online, and she's really I always joke when I introduce her to our clients that she's my secret weapon, but the secret's long gotten out. She's
This year I decided not to be a room parent. My husband was like, if you sign up again to be a room parent, I'm leaving. Like, we cannot manage any more things.
This is actually an interesting point because Anne Marie Slaughter, who's had a lot of articles out about how women really can't have it all, and how a big part of her success was because her husband more or less stayed home and raised a family and kids.
Yeah, my husband.
Her husband stays home.
So if my husband was not home, which I mean he's going to school online, but we had this discussion that when he finishes, I don't want him to go get a corporate job, because our life, the way that our family functions will be drastically affected, especially our children. Our children will grow up and you can go get a corporate job if you want, but our children are only small for so long and they're home with us. And if we're both gone, I can work from home, but I have meetings and things, and he gets them to where they need to go. If we're both gone and we're always having to just have somebody else, take care of them and move them all around and get them where they need to go, then we're missing out on a huge part of their life that we can't get back.
My sister did that, and the kids turned out wonderful. Both of them telecommutated from home for the kids.
So
and it's been wonderful.
that is a huge thing. My husband does a lot of, my kids are always saying, "Come have lunch with us, Daddy comes every week." I'm like, okay, because he's very, very involved. And sometimes it's hard for me as a mom, because I feel like I don't know all the parents of my kids' friends. My husband does, he's texting people and stuff. And we see him at the grocery store, and he's like, "Hey!" I'm like, "I don't know."
But before I mentioned that her husband stayed home, you guys probably didn't even occur to you that was what was happening. Probably since you worked too, and so you were even more astonished at what a superstar she is.
And then Shireen, tell everybody your impressive background.
My impressive background?
Yes,
I
I would say it like,
well, I worked in television, and I was an Emmy nominee. I won a lot of Addy Awards, and then I came to Atlanta, worked for Turner, went out west. Jumped into the .com boom in the late 90s, and then I went out west as a CMO for a startup that was a social media company before Facebook. I've been featured, or my projects have been on CNN, MTV, New York Times, CNET.
Wow.
I was just interviewed by the Wall Street Journal a few weeks ago. We'll see if that comes to fruition. But 14 years ago, I'd had enough of all of it, and I started my own company. I'm very proud of having been in business for 14 years as a marketing company, but I'm more proud of the fact that I've been able to create income and valuable work for women and men who, for whatever reason, don't want to work 40, 50, 60, in most of the cases, hours a week. And so somehow, even before we had Basecamp and other tools online, I was able to do that. I had friends who had left the workforce because they had children, but they still wanted to work. They just couldn't make meetings at 9 a.m. or whatever. So I was like, oh, I'll do all that. You do the work at night. And so I'm probably proud of that. And that's how I found people like Tiffany, and at one point Titania did some freelancing for my company. And so yeah, super exciting. We've had clients all the way from Uncle Matio's to UPS and other letters to the alphabet.
So what's something you either had hoped to take away from this session that you did not get yet, or what is something that you are going to take away from this session? And I'll start. I have picked one female to pour into over the past few weeks to really help her become more assertive and take what she deserves. But I hope to do more of that this year, not just one, but many. So that's kind of what I'm working on. Is there anything you guys, hoped to get that you did not get yet out of this? And we have 10 minutes left.
I actually like to know how you got your company funded, because that was a big issue, is getting women-owned businesses funded. And you've had 2 now that you've been involved with.
So, in the mode of total transparency, KidsLink, because we had a male CMO, he was the one that got the funding. I wasn't a part of that. And then with Privet, we are not funded yet. We are dipping into our savings account and pitching VCs as we speak. So if we get funding, you guys will know this is one of the rare success stories of a female-led startup getting some big West Coast dollars.
And yet you have a male CEO.
We do have a male CEO, but there's a team of 5 of us, 3 women, 2 men, and we all consider ourselves founders. We're founders, but he is a better CEO than I am. He rocks it. I'm marketing, I'm communication, I'm messaging. I come speak, and I'm okay with that. So yeah. So Privet is a social network, but it's not like the other social networks. I wanted something that could allow you to be genuine and have a real sense of community, not like a look how awesome my life is, you know, or you put some stuff out there and then your name's attached to it. So with Privet, you can go on the app and seek advice and seek community, but you can be anonymous, so you don't have to have that risk of judgment. And we really foster our community culture so much so that we're not allowing, you know, stupid things on there and sexually explicit things on there, no spam. It's just like, hey, these are some real people with real issues and we're just here to help each other. And you can do that globally or you can do that locally. So it has aspects of Twitter and Nextdoor and Facebook groups and Yik Yak.
Kind of like Yik Yak for grown-ups.
Yeah, Yik Yak for grown-ups. So.
Larger geography.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, it'd be interesting, being new to Atlanta, it'd be good to find a group of women that could talk like this.
Yes.
Occasionally, whether it be once a month or once a week. Because this is really good to see other people, even if we're different fields, energized.
Yeah.
You know, and so I don't know if after this anybody wants to do something like that.
Yeah.
Even once a month, it would be really nice.
So-
Just to share our experience.
She's typically not very busy, she could organize that.
So at Atlanta Tech Village, there's a thing every month called Women of the Village. It just started last month, and we should all go to it. I think the tickets are $10, and it's an early morning breakfast, so you don't have to miss work. And they have wonderful women speakers come in. I mean, they are CEOs of Fortune 500 companies, and they are like, you know, Sheryl Sandberg type people. And
Will you tweet info out about that for
yes,
everybody here?
yes, yeah. And actually, I look on my phone. There's one, I think, next week. So, let's see. I don't, but they'll set it up. Let's see. Women of the Village. Yeah, you can also just Google. It's hosted on Eventbrite, I think, but it's Women of the Village at Atlanta Tech Village. And Atlanta Tech Village is in Buckhead, right by Chipotle and the Buckhead Loop and Old Navy and Buckhead Church. It's like right there. So let me look real quick.
Tanya, one of the most, so I knew a lot of the stats in your presentation because, you know, this is one of my pet peeves. But one thing I was really shocked by was the recharging and the ads that they had for you on the American Express Open Forum.
Yeah.
I was shocked.
I know. I mean,
So.
it's just pervasive.
Yeah. Crazy.
I know.
And I think that starts too with young girls, even in school, and how they're geared to maybe like certain things or gravitate to certain subjects, you
Yeah.
know? So when you posted those ads, it caused me to think of that.
There's a
as
big
well.
counter movement to that. There's some great Facebook sites. Amy Poehler's Smart Girl.
Oh,
Right,
yes.
I follow that one.
Yes.
This
That's
representation. What's the other smart? It's not Goldie Blogs, but there's a couple of them, and they do a really good job. They'll raise an issue, and then they'll have lists of books that you can share with your children. And I don't have a girl. Mighty Girls.
Yeah.
I don't have a daughter, but I have a son, and I'm, you know, trying to raise him to be caring on all around. So yeah, I love that. Mighty Girls is a great.
Yeah, I follow both Mighty Girls and Amy.
So I just see a lot of that for little girls. In fact, one thing I think for little boys is, you know, it's fine for a little girl to wear blue, right? But it's not really fine for a little boy to wear pink. And I think that we need to also look at what we're talking about with our young boys too.
Yeah, anytime I feel guilty or sad for, you know, not seeing my kid until 7 p.m. at night, I think, you know what, he's going to grow up to see that his mom worked really hard and will hopefully respect women in the workplace because of it. And so the Women of the Village Breakfast Series is next Wednesday, the 14th. So I would look that up. I believe it's at 7:30. Uh-huh. Yeah, 7:30.
I get so irritated with early morning meetings because for a lot of us, we're the ones that have to get the kids ready and off to school, and most of us don't feel comfortable showing up to meetings like that without makeup and hair, and that's. I mean, my business partners, whenever we were going out and raising money, I used to get so irritated when they'd have these early morning meetings. I was like, you guys are rolling out of the shower and throwing on a suit. I've got a little bit more work to look presentable.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I mean, we're at a disadvantage too, just from a time perspective, like to get my hair straight, put my eyeliner on, and figure out what outfit I want to shave my legs. Like,
It's just, you know, but
Oh, I used to get so annoyed because they put us on a flight getting in at midnight. I'd have to go up at 5:30. I was like, you guys, no. Because you can get up at 6:30 and still make that meeting. Yeah. It's subtle things like that sometimes.
I'll just throw in there, so one thing that we do for the Georgia Conservancy is we do trips across the state of Georgia. So thousands of people a year camping, kayaking. When I tell people that, I think they imagine, oh, everyone on these trips looks like me, like bearded dudes, trouncing through the woods. And something that we found as we continue to expand our programming is that you have this just fabulous group of women who are in their 60s and 70s and even 80s who are rediscovering independence through outdoor recreation, but also kayaking. And I would say for our trips, you have this awesome group of women who are, it's easy on your shoulders. You can take the kayak on off yourself. A lot of there's groups that go out and do it. And that's just, for me, it's really eye-opening to kind of run this program, and we're getting thousands of people from all different backgrounds and see the different types of people who are engaging outdoor recreation from different perspectives and for different reasons. And for almost every one of these women, I can think of like a dozen. It's their husbands. They want to smoke cigars and play poker and play golf, and this was their chance to go and like build their own life in their own community, be successful, and
So their kids are raised.
or they don't have kids.
Right.
But then we also have family-friendly trips where people can bring their kids, and so we do. We're not a babysitting service, so it's like, hey, we'll create we really, for all of our trips, we have some that are family specific, but for all of our trips, we cast a really big tent, literally in like metaphorically. But then it's kind of, hey, we will let you know what's appropriate for children. We have children-friendly prices. It's just so much easier to go camping when you don't have to make any meals. You don't have to set the itinerary. We have the camping gear for you to use for free, and there's an environmental education component. And if you have to get off work or get out of school early, we can write, the note and get the excuses.
Yeah, so how do we do this?
Good question. Stick around for the next. So Georgia Conservancy. We're actually we're 2 blocks away. So our headquarters are in the Biltmore building, but GeorgiaConservancy.org, and then following us on
Great
Facebook.
Facebook page.
Yeah, thank you. Follow us on Facebook or Twitter, Instagram. It's a great way. And something I'm always proud of is that we've done a lot of great work. I think changing the face, having the face of Conservancy match better with the face of Georgia. And so we've got a great initiative with women from Spelman College who've become paid interns on our staff and leading trips and leading other women on Spelman's campus to get engaged with environmental activities. Something that always blows me away, and I would jump up and down and people just don't believe me, is that the work on the AUC campus around sustainability and environmental issues, AUC is Atlanta University Center, so like Clark, Morehouse, Spelman. They're more advanced and more forward-thinking and more community-based than anything I've ever seen at UVA or Emory or Georgia State. It's kind of a place where you consider traditional colleges, but they have this great environmental active group. And what's happening over there is so impressive, but it's disconnected from what you would also consider traditional NPOs or environmental movements. And it's been so much fun to kind of weave some of that energy into what we're doing. So.
that's cool. Very cool. Awesome. I'm going to check that out. All right. It's 2:30.
Thank you, Titania.
Yeah, thank you guys.